Commander Alice Weber sat motionless at the large curved table. Her blue uniform stood out among the various colors and textures worn by the 23 alien representatives of the Galactic Council. The air in the chamber felt cold against her skin. This was normal for most Council species, but uncomfortable for humans. Like so many other small discomforts, Weber had learned to hide her feelings about it. The Valaxian representative, Counselor Zixthal, finished speaking. His four eyes blinked in an unsynchronized pattern that Weber had learned meant satisfaction. The Council had just voted 7-16 against providing defensive ships to protect human trade routes from increasing pirate attacks. The Council acknowledges Earth's concerns, said Grand Counselor Jexval, his silvery skin reflecting the gentle blue lights of the chamber. However, we find insufficient evidence that these attacks specifically target human vessels. The motion is denied. Weber nodded politely. Inside, she felt a familiar anger rising. This was the third time in as many months that the Council had denied Earth's requests for help. She gathered her electronic notes and stood. The Earth government thanks the Council for its consideration, she said, using the formal phrase that had become empty of meaning after 8 years as Earth's representative. As Weber walked from the chamber, she noticed Secretary Olivia Foster waiting by the exit. Foster's face showed concern. Another denial, Weber said quietly as they walked down the wide corridor toward the human diplomatic offices. Commander, Admiral Miller sent an urgent message marked for your eyes only, Foster said, handing Weber a small secure data device. He said it couldn't wait. Back in her office, Weber activated the privacy field and inserted the data device into her console. Admiral John Miller's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired, his normally neat gray hair messy as if he had been running his hands through it repeatedly. Commander Weber, what I'm about to share has been verified by 3 separate intelligence teams, Miller began. We've intercepted communications proving that 4 council races, including the Valaxians, have been secretly supplying weapons to the pirate groups attacking our colonies. Weber felt her blood run cold. She watched as Miller presented evidence, showing council ships meeting with known pirate vessels, supplying them with weapons that were then used against human settlements and trade ships. The evidence was clear, with timestamps and identification markers that couldn't be denied. The most damning evidence is this, Miller continued. Their communications explicitly mention targeting human ships and avoiding vessels from allied species. This isn't random piracy. It's a coordinated campaign with Council knowledge and support. When the message ended, Weber sat in silence for several minutes. Then she called in Secretary Foster. Olivia, I need you to pull the complete record of all our diplomatic interactions with the Council. Every request we've made, every vote, every result. Everything from our first contact 47 years ago until today, Foster nodded. It'll take a few hours to organize. That's fine, and I need absolute privacy. Later that evening, Weber sat surrounded by data screens showing the history of human relations with the Galactic Council. The pattern was unmistakable, when viewed as a whole. Every human advancement had been met with new restrictions. Every request for equal treatment had been delayed or denied. Every technology humans shared had been absorbed while little was given in return. Secretary Foster entered with a fresh cup of coffee and a new data pad. I ran the analysis you requested, Foster said, placing the pad in front of Weber. The numbers confirm what we suspected. Human colonies receive 68% less security funding than any other council member. Our trade agreements include an average of 23% higher tariffs. Our citizens face triple the documentation requirements when traveling in council space. Weber picked up the pad and scrolled through the damning statistics. And they've hidden it behind procedural rules and separate decisions so we wouldn't see the complete picture. Foster nodded. Exactly. Each individual decision could be explained away. But together it shows a clear pattern of systematic discrimination. Weber finished. Weber stood and walked to the window overlooking the vastness of space. The Orion Prime space station housed the Galactic Council headquarters, rotating slowly against a backdrop of stars. She could see Earth ships docked alongside vessels from 100 different worlds. Humans had spent nearly half a century trying to be accepted as equals. Commander? Foster's voice broke through her thoughts. What are we going to do? Weber turned from the window. Her decision was made. Connect me to President Clark. Secure. Channel. Highest priority. When the connection was established, President Susan Clark's face appeared on the main screen. She wore a simple gray suit, her office on Earth visible behind her. Commander Weber, this is unexpected. What's happening? Madam President, I'm officially recommending that Earth withdraw from all diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council, effective immediately. There was a moment of silence before President Clark spoke. That's an extraordinary recommendation, Commander. On what grounds? Weber sent through the evidence from Admiral Miller and Secretary Foster's analysis. She watched as the President's expression changed from surprise to anger as she reviewed the files. We've spent nearly 50 years trying to be good galactic citizens, Weber continued. We've compromised, conceded, and cooperated at every turn. And in return, they've lied to us, exploited us, and now they're actively supporting attacks against our people. President Clark's face hardened as she finished reviewing the evidence. How certain are you about this intelligence? Completely certain. Triple verified and cross-referenced. The President was quiet for a long minute. If we withdraw completely, the consequences will be enormous. Trade disruptions, diplomatic backlash. With respect, Madam President, we're already facing those consequences. The difference is that right now, we're facing them while smiling and pretending we're being treated fairly. Another long pause. What about our citizens in council space? Our diplomats on other worlds? We should begin quiet evacuations immediately, before we make any public announcement. President Clark nodded slowly. I need to consult with the cabinet and military leadership, but she paused, her resolve visibly strengthening. I believe you're right, Commander. It's time we stopped pretending. There's one more thing, Madam President, Weber said. I believe we should reveal nothing about our reasons or our plans. No accusations, no explanations. Just leave, without saying why. Weber allowed herself a small smile. Exactly. After nearly 50 years of humans talking endlessly, trying to be heard, our silence will be deafening. The President returned the smile, understanding dawning in her eyes. I like it. Prepare to return to Earth, Commander Weber. We have work to do. As the communication ended, Weber looked back out at the stars. For the first time in years, she felt something like hope. Humanity had tried diplomacy for nearly half a century. Now it was time to try something new. President Susan Clark stood at the head of the long table in the main conference room of Earth's central government complex in New Geneva. Morning light streamed through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished wood surface. Around the table sat the 12 most powerful people on Earth, summoned for an emergency meeting that none of them had expected. 3 days ago, Commander Weber sent evidence that the Galactic Council has been actively supporting pirate attacks against our colonies and trade ships, President Clark said. Since then, my team has worked around the clock to verify this information and develop our response. The room was silent as the implications sank in. These men and women had dedicated their careers to maintaining peace with the Council races. Now they were facing the possibility that those efforts had been in vain. Director Hayes, please share your findings, the President said, nodding to a stern-faced man with sharp eyes. Kevin Hayes, head of Earth Intelligence Division, stood and activated the room's holographic display. Images of alien ships appeared above the table, alongside intercepted communications and shipping records. These documents prove that at least 4 Council races have been supplying weapons to pirate groups operating in human space, Hayes said, his voice calm despite the gravity of his words. But that's only the beginning. My team has discovered something much more concerning. Hayes changed the display to show a complex web of connections between various alien corporations and Earth companies. For decades, the Council has been manipulating our technological development. They've used trade agreements, technology licensing, and corporate infiltration to keep us dependent on their systems. Anytime we've gotten close to a breakthrough that might give us true independence, they've found ways to redirect our research or acquire the companies involved. Chief Engineer Ryan Porter, a stocky man with a shock of red hair, spoke up. That matches what we've seen in the defense sector. Every time we develop new shield technology or weapon systems, the Council passes new regulations that make our advancements illegal or forces us to share them with allied races. President Clark's face remained calm, but her eyes showed her anger. And yet we've managed to keep some development secret? Porter smiled for the first time. Yes, Madam President. Despite their best efforts, we have several research programs they know nothing about. Projects hidden within seemingly unrelated civilian research, spread across multiple locations to avoid detection. He activated his own data device, and the holographic display changed to show technical schematics for ship designs and defense systems, unlike anything Earth had publicly revealed. The Artemis project has developed shield technology that's 3 generations ahead of what the Council thinks we have. The Hermes drive can achieve faster-than-light travel without using the standardized Council navigation systems, which means they can't track our ships or shut them down remotely. Murmurs of surprise rippled around the table. Even some of the highest officials hadn't been aware of these secret developments. How quickly can these technologies be deployed? The President asked. We've been quietly installing the new shields on key colony worlds for the past 18 months, Porter replied. As for the ships, we have a hidden shipyard in the asteroid belt that's been producing vessels with the new drive. We've disguised them as mining ships and research vessels, but they're actually quite powerful. Ambassador Gary Nelson, Earth's representative to the neutral Andromeda Alliance, cleared his throat. What about diplomatic consequences? The Council won't take this lying down. That's why we need the autonomy protocol, President Clark said. A complete and immediate withdrawal from all Council relations in space. We need to evacuate all Earth citizens from Council territories, recall our military assets, and activate our independent defense network before they realize what's happening. Director Hayes nodded in agreement. We've been preparing contingency plans for years. We can begin quiet evacuations immediately, citing various routine reasons. It will take approximately 3 weeks to get all our people out without raising suspicion. What about our colonies? Asked a woman at the far end of the table. The colonists stay put, Porter answered. Their worlds are already equipped with the new shield systems. Once activated, Council weapons won't be effective against them. President Clark moved to the window, looking out at the rebuilt skyline of New Geneva. The city had been destroyed during the First Contact War and rebuilt as a symbol of humanity's resilience. Now it might face another test. Ambassador Nelson, what about the Andromeda Alliance? Can we count on their neutrality? Nelson adjusted his glasses before responding. The Alliance has no love for the Council's heavy-handed politics. They've agreed to a non-interference pact. They won't help us, but they won't help the Council either. That's enough for now, Clark said. We don't need allies. We just need time to establish our independence. For the next several hours, the group discussed and refined their plans. Military assets would be quietly repositioned. Colonial defense systems would be brought to ready status without activation. Supply chains would be redirected to ensure no colony would be left isolated. As the meeting concluded, President Clark signed the official order that would become known as the Autonomy Protocol. Once we send formal notice to the Council, how do you think they'll respond? She asked Ambassador Nelson. They'll assume it's a negotiation tactic, he replied with a slight smile. The Council has never taken humans seriously. They think we need them more than they need us. They'll expect us to come crawling back within days, begging for readmission under worse terms. Good, the President said. That gives us the time we need. 3 weeks later, Commander Alice Weber stood once again in the Galactic Council chamber. Unlike her previous appearances, she wore no formal diplomatic uniform, just simple civilian clothes. The chamber fell silent as she approached the speaker's podium. Honored representatives of the Galactic Council, Weber began, her voice steady. I come before you today with a message from the United Earth Government. Effective immediately, Earth withdraws from all diplomatic relations, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts with the Galactic Council and its member species. Confusion. spread through the chamber. Council members turned to each other, whispering in various languages. "This withdrawal is total and non-negotiable," Weber continued. "All human diplomatic personnel are already departing Council space. We have also recalled all military vessels and civilian ships under Earth jurisdiction." Grand Counselor Jexaval rose from his seat, his silvery skin reflecting his agitation. "Commander Weber, surely this is an extreme reaction. Whatever grievances Earth may have can be addressed through proper channels." "Earth has no grievances to present and no terms to negotiate," Weber interrupted, something no human had ever done in the council chamber. "This is not the beginning of a discussion. It is the end of one." With that, Weber turned and walked out of the chamber, leaving stunned silence in her wake. As the doors closed behind her, she permitted herself a small smile. The council had never truly listened to humanity's words. Perhaps now they would pay attention to humanity's silence. Fleet Commander Patricia Martinez stood on the bridge of the EDF Resolute, watching the stars through the main viewport. Her ship, officially registered as a mid-sized patrol vessel, was in reality one of Earth's most advanced warships. For years, it had hidden in plain sight, disguised with hull modifications and energy signature dampeners that made it appear less capable than it truly was. "Commander, we're receiving signals from all colony defense networks," reported her communications officer. "Shield systems are online and ready for activation." Martinez nodded. "Very good. And the fleet?" "All ships report ready, Commander. They've taken up defensive positions around the colonies as ordered." 1 month had passed since Earth's withdrawal from the Galactic Council. As expected, the Council had dismissed the action as a temporary tantrum, a negotiation tactic that would soon be abandoned when humans realized they couldn't survive without Council support. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Message from Engineer Wright at Colony Alpha," the communications officer said. "Council ships have entered the system, 3 cruisers and a diplomatic vessel." Martinez allowed herself a small smile. "Right on schedule. Put it on screen." The view screen shifted to show the approach of 4 sleek alien vessels. They moved with the confidence of those who expected no resistance, following a direct course to the human colony on the planet below. "Open channel to Engineer Wright," Martinez ordered. Alan Wright's face appeared on a side screen. He stood in the colony's control center, looking both nervous and excited. "They're hailing the colony," Wright reported, "demanding we accept a peacekeeping force for our own protection." "Have they threatened weapons?" "Not yet, but their ships are in attack formation." Martinez nodded. "Then it's time. Activate the shield network." Wright turned to his console and entered a command sequence. On the main view screen, Martinez watched as a faint blue shimmer appeared around the planet, barely visible at first, then solidifying into a translucent dome that encompassed the entire colony. The Council ships slowed their approach, clearly surprised by the unexpected defense system. "They're scanning the shield," Wright reported, grinning now. "They're trying to match it to known technologies." "They won't find a match," Martinez said. "That shield design has never been shared with the Council." On the smaller colonies and outposts throughout human space, similar scenes were playing out. Council ships arriving to ensure stability found themselves facing technology they hadn't known humans possessed. Aboard the Draxon cruiser, Inevitable Dominance, Council Admiral Kelthorne stared at the shield readings with disbelief. "Impossible," he muttered, his scaled skin darkening with anger. "Our intelligence indicated humans had no planetary shield capabilities." "Sir," his science officer responded, "these readings suggest the shield could withstand our strongest weapons. It's unlike any human technology we've encountered." Kelthorne slammed a clawed hand on the arm of his command chair. "This changes nothing. We will establish a blockade. These humans think they can survive alone. We will show them their mistake." The Draxon ships pulled back and took up positions at the system's jump point, preparing to intercept any vessels attempting to reach the colony. 3 days later, Kelthorne watched in growing fury as his blockade proved useless. Human ships approached the jump point, but instead of using the established routes that could be easily monitored, they simply disappeared from sensors, reappearing well past the blockade. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of his science officer. "Unknown, Admiral. They appear to be using some form of propulsion that doesn't require the standard jump network." This was catastrophic news. The Council controlled the Galactic Jump Network, the system of carefully plotted safe routes through faster-than-light travel. This control gave them power over trade, communication, and military movement throughout known space. If humans had developed an alternative, the strategic implications were enormous. Aboard her small trading vessel Horizon, Barbara Lewis watched the confusion of the Council ships with quiet satisfaction. Her vessel was small, just a simple merchant ship carrying medical supplies to the outer colonies. It was also equipped with the new Hermes drive, allowing it to bypass the Council's jump network entirely. Lewis activated her communications array. "This is Trader Barbara Lewis on the independent vessel Horizon, requesting permission to approach Colony Beta with medical supplies." The colony's traffic control responded immediately. "Permission granted, Trader Lewis. Council ships are advised to maintain their distance." Lewis smiled as she plotted a course directly past the blockading vessels. Her small ship accelerated, and then briefly shimmered before vanishing from normal space. The Council cruiser moved to intercept, but was far too slow. When Lewis reappeared, near the colony, she caught sight of the Council vessel still struggling to adjust its course. Her simple merchant ship had just outrun one of the most advanced military vessels in the galaxy. Over the next weeks, similar reports spread throughout human space and beyond. Council attempts to isolate human worlds failed as Earth ships demonstrated capabilities no one had suspected they possessed. On her flagship, Fleet Commander Martinez coordinated the defense of human space. Reports came in from all colonies, shield networks functioning perfectly, new trade routes established with non-Council species, and not a single successful Council military action against any human target. "Commander," her communications officer, called, "We're receiving a transmission from Earth. President Clark wishes to speak with you." Martinez nodded, and the President's face appeared on her screen. "Commander Martinez, excellent work. The defense network is performing even better than we hoped," President Clark said. "Thank you, Madam President. The Council seems genuinely shocked by our capabilities. As we expected, they never believed we could stand alone." The President paused. "We've begun establishing new trade agreements with the Andromeda Alliance and several independent systems. Many of them faced similar discrimination from the Council and are eager for alternatives." And the Council response? "They've called an emergency session. Our intelligence suggests they're in complete disarray. Some are calling for military action, others for renewed diplomatic efforts. They can't agree on how to respond because they never prepared for this scenario." Martinez couldn't help but smile. They never thought the humans would stop talking and start acting. Exactly. Economic. Minister Wilson is establishing the Earth Trade Cooperative as we speak. We're offering favorable terms to any world willing to deal directly with us rather than through Council intermediaries. And if the Council objects? President Clark's expression hardened. Let them object. For the first time in 50 years, their opinion of humanity doesn't matter. As the communication ended, Martinez turned back to the viewport. In the distance, she could see a Council diplomatic vessel holding position, repeatedly sending requests to approach Earth that went unanswered. After decades of being forced to respond to every Council demand, humans had discovered the power of silence. The Council was learning that the species they had dismissed as diplomatic weaklings had teeth after all, and the galaxy would never be the same. Grand Councilor Jexaval struggled to maintain order in the emergency chamber. The once orderly Council had dissolved into chaos. Representatives from 23 species shouted over one another, their universal translators creating a cacophony of accusations and demands. "Silence!" Jexaval's amplified voice finally cut through the noise. "This is the Galactic Council, not a trading floor brawl. We will address this crisis with the dignity befitting our station." The room gradually quieted, though the tension remained thick in the air. It had been 2 months since the humans had withdrawn from the Council, and things had only gotten worse. "The Economic Impact Report," Jexaval said, nodding to an aide, who activated the main display. Charts and figures appeared, showing steep downward trends across multiple sectors. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. As you can see, Jexaval continued, the absence of human goods from our markets has created significant shortages. Human agricultural products, medical supplies, and raw materials were more essential to our economies than previously acknowledged. Then we must force them back into the council, growled the Draxan representative. A full military response is the only language these primitives will understand. Councillor Nithvara, one of the few who had advocated for fair treatment of humans, stood up. She was from a smaller council race, the Ilarians, who had often found themselves caught between the major powers. And how has military pressure worked? So far? She asked sharply. Our ships cannot penetrate their shields. Our blockades cannot stop their vessels. We have failed at every attempt to demonstrate our superiority, and now we look weak. Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. The Draxan representative hissed in anger but did not respond. There is another matter we must address. Nithvara continued, walking to the center of the chamber. I have evidence that certain members of this council have deliberately manipulated policy regarding humans for their own benefit. She activated her data device and new information appeared on the main display. Documents, communication records, and financial transactions scrolled across the screen. For decades, a faction within the council has systematically undermined human advancement while exploiting their resources and innovation. They have redirected human technologies for their own use while ensuring humans remained dependent on council systems. Jexval's silvery skin paled. These are serious accusations, Councillor Nithvara. Do you have proof? I have provided it, to all members, she replied as the other representatives checked their data devices. The evidence is clear. The Draxan Collective, in particular, has orchestrated much of this conspiracy, with support from the Valaxians, Mert Confederation, and Haidari Empire. The chamber erupted into chaos once more, as the accused species loudly denied the charges, while others demanded investigations. Jexval struggled again to restore order, the council's unity crumbling before his eyes. On Earth, Economic Minister Laura Wilson walked through the newly established Earth Trade Cooperative headquarters in New Geneva. The massive complex had once housed the council's trade mission. Now it served as the center for Earth's independent economic relationships. Minister Wilson, the representatives from Proxima Colony are ready for their meeting, her assistant informed her. Wilson nodded and entered the conference room where 3 alien visitors waited. They were not council representatives but leaders from a colony world that had long chafed under council regulation. Welcome to Earth, Wilson said warmly. I understand you're interested in direct trade agreements without council oversight. The lead alien, a tall, blue-skinned humanoid, nodded. The council has controlled our exports for generations, taking a significant percentage for administrative costs. Your offer of direct trade with only 5% tariffs is revolutionary. Wilson smiled. Earth believes in fair trade. We have no interest in controlling your economy or dictating your policies. We simply want mutual benefit. As they began discussing terms, Wilson's communication device chimed softly. She excused herself to check the message. Interesting, she murmured, reading the update from Earth Intelligence. It seems several council races are breaking ranks. The Ilarians and Nith colonies have officially announced they will establish independent relations with Earth, regardless of council policy. The Proxima representatives exchanged surprised looks. The council will not accept this, one said. The council no longer has a choice, Wilson replied. They're discovering that their power was built on consensus, and that consensus is rapidly failing. Across the solar system, Ambassador Daniel Turner stood in Earth's orbital diplomatic station, watching the approach of yet another alien vessel seeking audience. This one bore the markings of a council diplomatic ship, but it came without official council authorization. Ambassador, the Ilarian vessel is requesting permission to dock, his aide reported. Turner nodded. Grant it. But remind them that Earth will only entertain bilateral discussions. We will not consider rejoining the council or accepting any form of council oversight. As the ship docked, Turner prepared to meet with the 6th independent delegation that week. More were scheduled to arrive in the coming days. The Council's united front was crumbling as individual member species realized they could get better terms by dealing directly with humans. In the Council emergency chamber, the situation had deteriorated further. Several seats now stood empty, their representatives having walked out after declaring their intention to pursue independent relations with Earth. "This is unacceptable," the Draxan representative shouted. "Any species that deals with humans outside Council authority should face sanctions." "And who will enforce these sanctions?" asked a representative from a mid-level power. "Your fleet? The same fleet that cannot even approach human worlds?" Jexval watched helplessly as more arguments broke out. Decades of Council unity were dissolving before his eyes. Reports from across the galaxy showed human ships freely traveling through previously restricted areas, offering trade deals that undercut Council tariffs by significant margins. "Grand Counselor," his aide whispered urgently, "we've just received word that the Nith and Alarians have signed formal trade agreements with Earth. They're publicly withdrawing from Council economic oversight." Jexval closed his eyes briefly. The Council was splitting into factions, those seeking reconciliation with humans, those clinging to old prejudices, and those attempting to remain neutral while protecting their own interests. A sudden silence fell over the chamber. Jexval looked up to see Ambassador Daniel Turner standing at the entrance. The human had not been invited and had not requested permission to enter, something unthinkable just months ago. "Grand Counselor," Turner said, his voice carrying clearly through the hushed room. "I bring Earth's only message to the Council." Jexval straightened in his seat. "We are willing to hear Earth's terms for returning to the Council." Turner smiled slightly. "Earth has no interest in returning. My message is simple. Earth will not negotiate with the Council as a body. We will, however, entertain bilateral discussions with individual species who acknowledge the decades of systematic discrimination against humanity." With that, Turner placed a data device on the central platform and walked out, leaving stunned silence in his wake. The device projected a single message. "The era of Council dominance is over. The future belongs to those who embrace true cooperation." As Turner left the chamber, he smiled to himself. Humans had spent 50 years talking while the Council ignored them. Now humans had stopped talking and the Council couldn't stop listening. Commander Alice Weber stood by the tall windows of Earth's new diplomatic center in New Geneva. 6 months had passed since Earth's withdrawal from the Galactic Council. The city below buzzed with activity as ships from across the galaxy filled the skies, many bearing markings of species that had once dealt with humans only through Council intermediaries. Weber had been appointed as Earth's first Minister of Interstellar Relations, a position created to manage Earth's new approach to galactic politics. Today was perhaps her most important day in that role. "Minister Weber," her aide said from the doorway, "the representatives have arrived. They're gathering in the Grand Hall." Weber nodded and straightened her simple blue uniform. "How many came?" 17 species, Minister. More than expected." A smile touched Weber's lips. She had spent 8 years in the Council chamber watching humans beg for equal treatment. Now, former Council races were eager for audience with Earth. The Grand Hall was filled with aliens of various forms. Some floated in atmosphere tanks, others stood on multiple legs, while many were roughly humanoid. All turned to watch as Weber entered. "Welcome to Earth," she began, her voice clear in the hushed room. "Thank you for accepting our invitation." These were representatives from species who had chosen to break from Council economic control. Some were longtime Council members, others were colonial worlds that had chafed under Council rule. All had one thing in common: they sought a new relationship with humanity. "Earth proposes the formation of a new interstellar association," Weber continued. "The Mutual Progress Alliance will be founded on principles of technological sharing, equal standing, and non-interference in internal affairs." She activated the room's holographic display, showing the proposed structure of the new alliance. Unlike the hierarchical council, this organization would have no permanent leadership, and no species would hold greater power than others. Each member maintains full sovereignty, Weber explained. Joint defense, research, and trade are all voluntary. No member may impose regulations on another's development or expansion. As the representatives asked questions and discussed the proposal, Admiral John Miller stood at the back of the room, watching quietly. He wore a formal uniform, but his presence was a reminder of the military strength that had made this moment possible. A representative of the Alarians approached him during a break in the discussions. "Admiral Miller, there are rumors that Earth is willing to share its shield technology with Alliance members. Is this true?" Miller nodded. "Minister Weber will address this officially, but yes, Earth believes in mutual security. We've lived too long with artificial restrictions on our development. We won't impose the same on others." Across the galaxy, in his private chambers at the Council headquarters, Grand Counselor Jexaval stared at reports from across Council space. The once mighty Galactic Council had splintered into 3 distinct factions. The Traditionalists, led by the Draxan and Valaxians, insisted on maintaining Council supremacy and advocated for military action against Earth and any who allied with humans. The Reformists, mostly smaller powers, pushed for a complete restructuring of Council policy to compete with human initiatives. Between them, the neutrals tried to maintain relationships with both sides while protecting their own interests. Jexaval had spent his entire career in Council service, rising through the ranks with the belief that the Council represented the pinnacle of galactic civilization. Now that civilization was crumbling around him, his aide entered quietly. "Grand Counselor, your transport is ready." Jexaval stood. The decision he was about to make would likely end his career, but he saw no alternative. The Council could not survive in its current form. Adaptation was necessary for survival. No one knew of his journey. He traveled with a minimal security detail in an unmarked ship. When they arrived at Earth, they were scanned thoroughly before being granted permission to land at a small private facility away from the main diplomatic center. The Grand Counselor requests a private audience with Minister Weber, his aide told the human security officer. No official record, no observers. After a brief wait, Jexaval was escorted to a small meeting room. Commander Alice Weber, now Minister Weber, waited alone. Her expression revealed nothing as the alien who had once presided over her humiliation entered the room. "Grand Counselor," she said, neither standing nor bowing as Council protocol would have demanded. "This is unexpected." "Minister Weber," Jexaval began, his silver skin dull with fatigue. "I come not as Grand Counselor, but as a representative of a species that sees the need for change." Weber gestured to a chair, and Jexaval sat. For a moment, neither spoke. "The Council is dying," Jexaval finally said. "Perhaps it has been dying, for longer than any of us realized. What you have built in 6 short months has shown us the flaws in our system. We built it out of necessity," Weber replied. "You left us no choice." Jexaval's skin rippled in the equivalent of a sad smile. "And I am beginning to understand why. I have reviewed the evidence presented by Counselor Nithvara. The systematic discrimination against humans was. I find I cannot defend it. Yet, you presided over it for years." "Yes. To my lasting shame." He placed a data device on the table between them. "I bring no demands, no threats, only a request for my people to open preliminary discussions about joining your new alliance." Weber stared at him, surprised for the first time. "The Zarin hierarchy wishes to abandon the council they helped found. The council we founded no longer exists. It has become something else, something that serves the interests of a few while claiming to represent all. Your new alliance, despite being created by a species we mistreated, offers more freedom and opportunity than the council now does." Weber picked up the data device. "This will cause chaos in the council." "More chaos than already exists?" Jexaval asked with a tired gesture. "The council will either reform or collapse entirely. Either way, my people wish to secure their future." Later that day, President Susan Clark joined Weber and Admiral Miller on the observation deck of the Diplomatic Center. Below them, ships from 17 different worlds prepared for departure, each carrying the newly signed accords establishing the Mutual Progress Alliance. We never wanted this, Clark said quietly. All we ever asked for was equal treatment. Sometimes, the only way to get respect is to walk away, Miller replied. Weber watched as Jexval's unmarked ship lifted off, carrying the former Grand Counselor back to a council in turmoil. He asked me why we didn't simply conquer the council worlds when we revealed our true capabilities. Why we're offering partnership instead of demanding submission. And what did you tell him? Clark asked. That humans tried conquest in our own history. It never ends well. Weber turned from the window. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want our place in it. As night fell over New Geneva, lights from 1,000 ships twinkled in the sky. Human vessels flew alongside alien craft. No longer segregated or restricted as they had been under Council rule. Engineers from 6 different species worked together on a space station visible from the observation deck, sharing technologies that the Council had once declared too dangerous for lesser races to possess. We never wanted to abandon diplomacy, Weber said, echoing the words she had spoken to President Clark 6 months earlier. We just needed to show them what happens when we do. Miller nodded. And now they can't stop listening. No, Weber replied, with a smile. Now they can't stop asking to join us.